The chandeliers of the Sapphire Crest Hotel shimmered like frozen stars, but Adrian barely noticed the luxury surrounding him. He was minutes away from announcing his engagement to Liana, a woman who fit perfectly into the polished world he'd built. Cameras waited. Guests watched. Everything felt scripted, until one unexpected moment snapped the night in half. As Adrian stepped into the service hallway to clear his thoughts, he caught sight of a familiar silhouette through the swinging kitchen doors. A woman in a chef's coat, her hair pinned neatly, her movements calm and practiced. Something inside him tightened. That walk, that posture, it couldn't be her. Not here. Not tonight. But when she turned, carrying a tray of plated appetizers, the world beneath him shifted. It was her. Maya. The woman he once loved with an innocence he thought he couldn't lose. The woman he let go because he believed he needed ambition more than a heart. For 7 years he had convinced himself she had moved on, that the wound had healed. But now, standing 10 feet away, she looked almost exactly as he remembered, except for the 2 small children beside her, each wearing matching aprons, carefully helping arrange the dishes. Adrian's breath caught. The girl, maybe 9, shared Maya's gentle eyes. The boy beside her had a familiar shade of hair, the same quiet focus Adrian had carried at that age. They moved as though this kitchen was their world, secure, warm, theirs. He felt a mix of disbelief and something sharper, something that rattled the core he had built his life upon. For a moment, Maya's gaze lifted, and collided with his. The tray wobbled in her hands. Her expression froze, not in fear, not in anger, but in a shock that carried 7 years of silence, choices, and truths never spoken. The chatter of the crowd faded. The music softened. Only their locked eyes existed. Adrian felt the ground tilt beneath him, a single question echoing louder than any celebration outside. Why was the woman he lost here tonight? And whose children were standing by her side? Adrian tried to steady his breathing, but his pulse raced faster the longer he stared at the kitchen door Maya had disappeared behind. Liana's voice floated through the hallway, sweet but sharp around the edges. There you are. Everyone is waiting for us. He forced a smile, but his eyes kept drifting back toward the kitchen. Liana noticed. She always noticed. What's wrong? She asked, fingers curling possessively around his arm. Before he could answer, a waiter brushed past them. Adrian caught a glimpse of the 2 children again, now carrying trays with surprising confidence. The boy whispered something to Maya, and she touched his shoulder with gentle reassurance, an image that tugged painfully at Adrian's chest. He didn't know why it shook him. He didn't know why the sight of the little boy felt like a memory he had never lived. Adrian? Liana's voice was firmer now, suspicious. Do you know that woman? He shook his head too quickly. No. Just thinking about the event. It was a lie and it tasted bitter. He had spent years burying the image of Maya, convincing himself she was simply part of a past that didn't fit the life he was building. Yet the moment he saw her again, the past didn't just resurface, it collided violently with the present. And somewhere deep inside him, a realization whispered a warning he wasn't ready to face. If Maya was here, if those children were hers, what truth had been waiting in the shadows all these years? Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that the walls of the ballroom were slowly closing in. Every toast, every congratulatory handshake felt distant, muted, overshadowed by the image of Maya's stunned eyes and the children standing beside her. He kept glancing toward the kitchen, unable to stop himself. When the event coordinator approached him with a clipboard, Adrian's heart nearly stopped. Sir, the head chef needs your approval on the final course presentation. Of course she does, he thought. Fate wasn't just nudging him tonight, it was dragging him by the collar. He followed the coordinator into the kitchen, feeling Liana's glare burn into his back. The moment he stepped inside, the warm scent of herbs and slow-cooked broth washed over him. Maya stood at the center, giving instructions with calm authority. The children worked beside her with surprising skill, but the boy, Evan, kept glancing at Adrian with a curiosity that made his pulse race. Maya turned slowly when she sensed him standing there. Their eyes met again, and for a breath neither spoke. The kitchen noise faded into a distant hum. Adrian, you shouldn't be here, she finally whispered, her voice steady but her hands trembling ever so slightly. I needed to see you, he replied before he could stop himself. Evan stepped forward, innocent and confident. Mom, is this the man from the picture? Maya's face paled. Adrian felt the ground tip beneath him. Picture? What picture? The question burned through him, and one undeniable truth hovered in the air. There were pieces of the past he never knew existed, pieces that now stood right in front of him, breathing and alive. Maya's stunned silence filled the room, and Adrian felt every muscle in his body tighten. Evan's innocent question hung between them like a spark waiting to ignite a truth they both had buried. Maya quickly guided the children aside, lowering her voice. "Go help arrange the dessert trays," she told them gently. But her eyes never left Adrian. When they were far enough not to hear, Maya turned back to him, her expression guarded, almost defensive. "You shouldn't read too much into a child's words," she murmured. "I'm not," Adrian said. "But there is something to read, isn't there?" She exhaled shakily, wiping her flour-dusted hands on her apron. "This is not the time. You have an entire ballroom waiting for you. You have a fiancé." He didn't flinch. "Maya, do they know who I am?" Her eyes flashed with something sharp: hurt, fear, memory. "They know exactly what they need to know," she said, voice tight. "Nothing more." Before he could respond, Evan peeked around a stack of plates, watching Adrian with curiosity so fierce it was almost painful. He had the same observant stare Adrian carried as a boy. The same tilt of the head. The same quiet intensity. Adrian stepped closer. "You can't expect me to ignore this." Maya's voice cracked slightly despite her effort to stay composed. "I expected you to never walk into my life again." But fate clearly had other plans, and as their eyes locked, Adrian felt it, the undeniable pull of a truth that refused to stay hidden. And he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't leave this kitchen without answers. Adrian's voice was low but unwavering. "Maya, I deserve to know. And they deserve the truth." Her hands tightened around the edge of the counter, knuckles pale. "Truth?" she whispered. "The truth wasn't safe back then, Adrian. You think everything stayed the same while you climbed your way into the world you always wanted?" Her voice trembled, not with anger but with something far heavier. "You don't know what it was like after you left." He stepped closer, softening. "Then tell me. Please." But before she could speak, the kitchen door swung open and the children rushed in again. This time the little girl, Lila, clung to Maya's apron, her voice small. "Mom, is that the man you used to draw for me?" Adrian's breath hitched. "Draw?" She drew him. Maya shut her eyes for a second, as if bracing herself against a wave she could no longer outrun. When she opened them, Adrian saw years of exhaustion and quiet strength behind her gaze. "I won't talk here," she whispered. "Too many eyes. Too many years." "Then tell me where," he urged. She hesitated, torn between fear and inevitability. Finally, she nodded toward the side exit. "After the event. Behind the hotel. I'll explain everything, but only once." Adrian felt a surge of hope, dread, longing, emotions he had forgotten he was capable of feeling. But as Maya turned away, Liana stepped into the kitchen doorway, her expression cold and calculating as her eyes moved between them. And in that tense, wordless moment, Adrian realized something chilling. He wasn't the only one who had sensed the truth tonight. Liana had too. And she wasn't going to let go without a fight. The night air behind the hotel was cool, carrying the distant hum of music from the ballroom. Adrian stood waiting, every second stretching tighter around his chest. When Maya finally stepped outside, her shoulders were tense, her apron gone, her expression unguarded for the first time since he'd seen her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt like the 7 years they had lost, heavy, complicated, unfinished. "You wanted the truth," she said softly. "So here it is." Adrian steadied himself. "I'm ready." Maya looked down at her hands, the hands that had built a life from nothing, then lifted her gaze with a courage that made his heart ache. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because your world didn't have space for someone like me. Your plans, your ambitions, your family. They made it clear I wasn't welcome." Adrian swallowed hard. "You should have told me." "I tried," she whispered. "But every door to you was shut. And then I found out I was expecting. I was scared, Adrian. Not for myself, for them. I didn't want our children growing up feeling unwanted. I chose a simple life because at least I could protect them there." The word children echoed in his chest like a strike. "They're mine?" She didn't say it, she didn't have to. The truth shone in her eyes, in the way Evan stood, in Lila's shy smile. Adrian felt his world tilt in a direction he hadn't expected but desperately needed. Before he could speak, footsteps sounded behind him. Liana stepped into the light, her stare sharp as glass. "So this is why you were distracted tonight." Adrian didn't turn away from Maya. "This is something I should have known years ago. And I won't ignore it anymore." For the first time, Maya's face softened, not with hope, but with relief that he finally understood. The future was uncertain, tangled, and fragile, but one thing was undeniable. The life Adrian had been chasing was nothing compared to the truth standing right in front of him. He took a slow step closer to her. "Let me try, Maya. Let me be part of their world. Part of your world." Maya looked at him, torn between the past that hurt and the future that suddenly looked possible. And as the hotel lights glowed behind them, she realized the choice she made next would change all their lives forever.